They say love is tested in hardship, but I learned that some people were never really there to begin with. 15 years. That's how long I thought I had built something unshakable with Catherine. 15 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, a house in the suburbs with the white picket fence, the whole dream. I was Michael Rodriguez, a project manager at a construction company, pulling in decent money, sometimes working 60-hour weeks to make sure my family had everything they needed. Catherine never worked. Not because she couldn't, but because we agreed early in our marriage that she'd focus on raising our kids while I handled the financial side. Madison was now 23, about to get married, and Tyler was in his second year of college. I was proud of what we'd built together, or at least what I thought we'd built together. The layoffs hit our company in March. 20-year veterans, guys who'd been there since the foundation was poured, all got the same sterile email on a Tuesday morning. Budget cuts, they said. Market downturn, nothing personal, just business. I drove home that afternoon practicing how I'd tell Catherine. We had savings, not a fortune, but enough to keep us comfortable for several months while I searched for something new. My resume was solid, my references excellent. I figured we'd tighten our belts, maybe postpone the kitchen renovation, but we'd be fine. Catherine was arranging flowers in the living room when I walked in. She had this way of making everything look perfect, like she was constantly preparing for a magazine shoot. I used to love coming home to that, the visual proof that I was providing well for my family. Hey honey, I said, loosening my tie. We need to talk about something. She looked up from her arrangement, and I noticed she was already dressed for her book club meeting. Catherine was always busy with something: book clubs, charity committees, yoga classes. I'd encouraged it all, happy that she had friends and interests outside our home. Can it wait? I'm running late for Janet's. It's about work, I said carefully. I got laid off today. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Catherine's hands stilled on the flowers, and when she finally looked at me, her expression was unreadable. Laid off, she repeated slowly. It's temporary, I said quickly. The whole department got cut, but I've already got calls into 3 different companies. My old boss from Morrison Construction said they might have something opening up in— How long? She interrupted. How long what? How long before you find something else? I was taken aback by the coldness in her voice. I don't know exactly, maybe a few weeks, maybe a couple months, but we've got savings. And Catherine set down the flowers and walked past me toward the stairs. I need to get ready. That night she didn't ask how I was feeling. She didn't offer any words of encouragement or talk about how we'd get through it together. She just went to her book club meeting and came home late, slipping into bed without a word. The next few days followed the same pattern. I'd spend my mornings updating my resume, reaching out to contacts, scrolling through job boards. Catherine would find reasons to be out of the house. Suddenly she had more lunch dates and shopping trips than ever before. A week after I got laid off, I found her suitcases in our bedroom. What's this? I asked, though my stomach already knew the answer. Catherine didn't look at me while she folded her clothes. I'm staying at my sister's for a while. For a while? Catherine, what are you talking about? She finally turned to face me, and the woman I'd loved for 15 years looked like a complete stranger. Michael, I can't do this. Can't do what? I'm going to find another job. This is just temporary. That's not what I mean, she said, closing the suitcase with a sharp zip. I can't be married to someone who can't provide for his family. The words hit me like a physical blow. I've been providing for 15 years. One setback doesn't erase one setback. Catherine laughed, but there was no humor in it. Michael, you're 42 years old. Companies don't want to hire middle-aged project managers when they can get someone younger for half the salary. You're going to be job hunting for months, maybe years, so you're just giving up on us. I'm being realistic, she said, lifting her suitcase off the bed. I refuse to watch everything we've built fall apart because you couldn't keep your job. I stood there watching my wife walk out of our bedroom, our marriage, our life, like it meant nothing. Like 15 years of love and partnership could be dismissed because of one bad Tuesday morning. What about Madison's wedding? I called after her. Our daughter's wedding was still 3 months away. Catherine paused at the top of the stairs. We'll figure it out, and that was it. She moved in with her sister Denise, leaving me alone in our house with nothing but job applications and the echo of her last words. The following weeks were brutal. Madison was devastated when we told her about the separation. Tyler came home from college demanding answers I didn't have. Meanwhile, Catherine seemed to be thriving in her new single life, or so I gathered from the social media posts Madison would reluctantly show me. I did find another job, actually. It took 2 months, not the years Catherine had predicted. The salary was slightly lower, but it was steady work with a good company. I called Catherine the day I got the offer. That's nice, she said when I told her the news. But Michael, I think it's better if we just keep things the way they are. Keep things what way? Catherine, I have a job again. We can work this out. I've filed for divorce, she said simply. My lawyer will be in touch. The divorce proceedings were uglier than I expected. Catherine wanted half of everything, including the house, claiming she'd sacrificed her career to support mine. Never mind that staying home had been her choice, or that I'd never once complained about being the sole provider. But the worst part was watching how it affected Madison. Our daughter tried to stay neutral, but Catherine was clearly poisoning her against me. Madison started making comments about how I drove Mom away, and how maybe I should have tried harder to keep my job. 3 weeks before the wedding, Madison called me crying. Dad, Mom says she can't afford to help with the wedding anymore because of the divorce costs. Trevor's family is already paying for most of it, but we're going to have to cut the guest list and cancel the reception venue. Trevor was Madison's fiancé, a good kid from a modest family who was trying his best to give Madison the wedding she wanted. The venue they'd chosen was beautiful but expensive, exactly the kind of place Catherine had insisted our daughter deserved. Don't worry about it, I told Madison. I'll take care of the venue. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, I do. It's your wedding. You shouldn't have to compromise because your mother is being vindictive. I used nearly all of my savings to keep Madison's reception venue. It hurt financially, but seeing my daughter's relief was worth it. At least one of us was going to have the day she dreamed of. The morning of the wedding, I was getting ready in my hotel room when my phone rang. It was Harrison Craig, the private investigator I'd hired for the divorce proceedings. Catherine's lawyer had been claiming she needed significant alimony because she'd never worked and had no job skills. Michael, you need to see this, Harrison said. Can you meet me in the lobby in 5 minutes? Harrison was waiting with a manila envelope that would change everything. Your wife hasn't just been staying at her sister's, he said, handing me the photos. She moved in with Brian Hendricks 3 weeks after she left you. Brian Hendricks. I knew the name. He was a real estate developer, recently divorced with more money than sense. Catherine had mentioned him a few times over the years, always in the context of charity events or social gatherings. There's more, Harrison continued. The affair started 8 months ago. I've got hotel receipts, restaurant charges, even text messages. She was planning to leave you long before you lost your job. The layoff just gave her an excuse to look like the victim instead of the cheater. I stared at the photos of Catherine and Brian together, and suddenly everything made sense. Her frequent absences, the book club meetings that ran late, the new clothes and jewelry I'd assumed were gifts to herself. She hadn't left me because I lost my job. She'd left me because she'd found someone richer. The timing is interesting too, Harrison added. She filed for divorce exactly 1 week after Brian's divorce was finalized. This whole thing was coordinated. I sat in that hotel lobby holding evidence that my wife had been living a double life, and instead of rage I felt something close to relief. At least now I knew the truth. The wedding ceremony was beautiful. Madison looked radiant, Trevor was grinning from ear to ear, and for a few hours I managed to forget about everything else. Catherine sat in the front row on the opposite side, wearing a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Brian was there too, sitting a few rows back, playing the role of innocent family friend. During the cocktail hour, Catherine actually approached me. Michael, I want you to know I appreciate you covering the venue costs, she said, her voice honey-sweet. I know this hasn't been easy on any of us. Of course, I replied. Madison deserved to have the wedding she wanted. Catherine smiled, that perfect smile she'd perfected over the years. I hope we can be civil through all this, for the children's sake. Absolutely, I agreed. For the children's sake. The reception was in full swing when I stood up to give my father of the bride speech. Madison had asked both her parents to speak, so Catherine would go first, then me. I watched my soon-to-be ex-wife take the microphone and deliver a flawless speech about love, commitment, and the importance of building a life with someone who would stand by you through anything. The irony was almost painful. When it was my turn, I stood up with my own prepared remarks about Madison's childhood, about watching her grow into the amazing woman she'd become, about how proud I was to be her father. I was halfway through when I made a decision that surprised even me. You know, I said, deviating from my notes, marriage is interesting. You think you know someone after 15 years, but people can still surprise you. I looked directly at Catherine, who was smiling politely but starting to look confused. My wife Catherine taught me something important recently about the nature of commitment. She showed me that some people view marriage as a business transaction, something you stay in as long as it's profitable, and abandon the moment it becomes inconvenient. Catherine's smile was faltering now. A few people in the crowd were starting to shift uncomfortably. For example, I continued, some people might carry on an affair for 8 months while their husband works 60-hour weeks to provide for the family, then use that husband's temporary job loss as an excuse to leave, making it look like he was the failure instead of admitting they'd already found someone with a bigger bank account. The room had gone completely silent. Catherine was staring at me in horror, her face pale. Now, I'm not naming names, I said, maintaining my calm tone, but I do think it's important that young couples like Madison and Trevor understand the difference between real love and opportunistic gold digging. I raised my glass to the crowd. So, here's to my daughter Madison, who chose a partner based on love, loyalty, and character. And here's to my son-in-law Trevor, who will never have to wonder if his wife is in it for the right reasons. May your marriage be built on honesty, something that's apparently rarer than I thought. The applause was scattered and confused. Catherine had stood up and was making her way toward the exit, Brian close behind her. Madison looked mortified, but Tyler was actually smiling. Apparently, he'd figured out months ago that his mother was seeing someone else. Later that evening, after most of the guests had left, Madison confronted me. Dad, did you have to do that at my wedding? I'm sorry it happened at your wedding, I said honestly. But your mother has been painting me as the villain in this divorce while she was the one who cheated. I got tired of being blamed for her choices. Madison was quiet for a long moment. Is it true about the affair? I handed her Harrison's envelope. You can decide for yourself. 3 days later, Catherine's lawyer called mine. Apparently she was willing to settle for much less than originally demanded. Funny how evidence of infidelity can change someone's negotiating position. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Catherine got some assets, but nowhere near what she would have received if she'd been the faithful wife she'd pretended to be. She married Brian 2 months after our divorce was final, apparently. 8 months of affair plus 6 months of divorce proceedings was long enough to wait. I kept the house. Tyler moved back home after graduating, and we've actually grown closer through all this. Madison forgave me for the wedding speech once she understood the full truth. She even thanked me for showing her what real commitment looks like. As for me, I'm doing fine. Better than fine, actually. The new job turned into a promotion. The house feels more peaceful without Catherine's constant criticism, and I've learned something valuable. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. I thought losing my job was going to destroy my life. Instead, it revealed who was really on my side and who never was. Catherine did me a favor by showing her true colors when she thought I couldn't fight back. She was wrong about that too. Sometimes the truth has perfect timing, and sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people see who someone really is.